Welcome, everyone, to Where's the Start Button? This is our very first Nostalgia Rewind, and I'm Johnny.
And I'm Jess. It's great to be here, Johnny. Today, we're diving headfirst into something we think you'll definitely remember.
Oh, yeah. We're talking about that time before your phone did absolutely everything. Specifically, how on earth did we listen to music on the go?
Exactly. We're taking a trip back, way back, to the era of clunky plastic, endless AA batteries, and the constant gnawing fear that your precious music machine was about to, eat your favorite tape.
Absolutely. So our mission today, our Nostalgia Rewind, is basically a deep dive into let's call it the brutal, sometimes hilarious battle for your pocket space. We're asking the big question, dude, where's my Walkman?
Love the title. It fits perfectly because we're tracing that whole evolution, right? From the absolute king, the analog cassette Walkman.
All the way through the digital chaos of the late 90s and early 2000s. You remember that, Jess? It felt like there were, 5 different gadgets, 5 completely incompatible formats, all shouting, pick me, pick me.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
It was the Wild West. You had cassettes, CDs, these weird little mini discs, then those first clunky MP3 players, all before the iPod finally sorted things out.
And each one came with its own special brand of frustration, its own, unique set of compromises you just had to accept.
Yeah, totally. So what we want to do today is kind of unpack that, give you the inside scoop on why it was such a mess and, what we were all willing to put up with just to have some tunes on the bus or while jogging badly.
Jogging badly is the key phrase there. Okay, let's do it. Let's hit that metaphorical rewind button, maybe find a pencil to wind it manually, and start with the OG, the undisputed champ for years, the Cassette Walkman.
Right, the Walkman. It's hard to overstate how massive this thing was culturally speaking. Sony really hit it out of the park. It wasn't just a gadget. It fundamentally changed how we experienced music. Suddenly it was personal.
It really was your own private soundtrack. And the amazing thing, looking back, is how long it stuck around. I mean, CDs were dominant in homes by the early 90s, but Walkmans, they were everywhere, well into the late 90s.
Yeah, and that longevity wasn't just nostalgia. It had some real, core strengths that kept it relevant, especially compared to what came immediately after.
Okay, let's break those down. Strength number 1, I'd say, was the media itself. The cassette tape.
Oh, definitely. Cassettes were, they were small, weren't they? And super lightweight, you could stuff a bunch in your pocket.
And crucially, Jess, the blank tapes were cheap. Dirt cheap, eventually.
Exactly. And that affordability, that's what fueled the whole mixtape culture. We talk about mixtapes now like they're just playlists, but back then, it was like an art form, a social currency.
Totally. Crafting the perfect mixtape for someone, timing the songs, making the cover. It was a ritual.
And you could carry, 10, 12 tapes in a jacket pocket? That's like 10 or 12 hours of music right there. Try doing that with CDs later on. You needed a whole separate bag.
Good point. Okay, so portability and the whole mixtape culture, driven by cheap blanks. What else kept it going? You mentioned something about reliability, which sounds weird for cassettes.
Well, yeah, reliability in a very specific way. It was analog, right? Sequential tape. It didn't really skip in the way CDs did.
Right. If you were jogging or, just walking down a bumpy street.
The sound might wobble a bit. You'd get that wow and flutter thing we'll talk about. But the music usually kept playing. It wouldn't just stop dead like a CD player hitting a bump.
That's true. It was surprisingly robust for, actual movement, which is ironic given the name Walkman. It actually worked while walking, unlike some later walkdowns.
Exactly. So for people who were actually active, it was weirdly more reliable than those early super sensitive portable CD players.
And the battery life. Just, do you remember how long those things lasted?
Oh my God, yes. It felt like weeks sometimes, didn't it? On just 2 AA batteries, alkaline usually.
Yeah, you just forget about them. That simple motor mechanism, just pulling tape past a head, was incredibly efficient.
Absolutely. Compare that to later gadgets that needed lasers, spinning motors going at high speed, digital guffers. The Cassette Walkman was the undisputed king of battery longevity. It was simple, durable in its own way.
Okay. But we're painting a rosy picture here, let's be real. That simplicity, that analog nature, it came with some massive downsides that we all just put up with.
Oh, absolutely. We forgave a lot. Let's start with the obvious one. Sound quality just wasn't great.
Yeah, inherently flawed. You always had that background hiss, right? That constant shh.
The dreaded case, yeah. That was just the noise from the magnetic particles on the tape itself. It was always there. especially in quiet bits.
And they tried to fix it, didn't they, with Dolby?
Right, Dolby noise reduction, usually Dolby B or C on consumer players. It was actually a pretty clever system for the time.
How did that actually work again? I just remember pressing the button.
Yeah, basically, when the music was recorded onto the tape, Dolby boosted the volume of the quiet, high-frequency sounds at very frequencies where hiss lives. Then, during playback, the Walkman circuitry did the opposite. It cut those specific high frequencies back down to their normal level, and when it cut them down...
And it cut the hiss down with them. Clever.
Exactly. It worked pretty well most of the time. But it needed the tape player heads to be perfectly aligned, and the tape itself to be recorded properly with Dolby, if not.
It could sound weirdly muffled or just not work. And even with Dolby, you couldn't escape the other analog enemy. Wow and flutter.
Wow and flutter, yes. The C6 sound, that's basically tiny variations in the tape speed as it moved past the head.
So wow was the slow, warbly pitch change, like the batteries were dying.
Kind of, yeah. Slow oscillation. And flutter was like a faster nervous vibration in the sound. Made piano sound awful.
Totally. And it just got worse as the player got older or the tape got stretched. A mechanical certainty.
It really was. And then there was the whole user experience, which was defined by what you called this sequential struggle.
Oh man, finding one specific song, forget about it, unless it was at the very start of the side.
Right. No random access here. You wanted track 5 on side B. You're hitting fast forward, listening to that high-pitched chipmunk chatter, maybe hitting stop, play, rewind a bit, play again, praying you landed somewhere near it.
And all that fast-forwarding and rewinding killed the batteries faster, too.
Absolutely. It made you really commit to listening to a whole album side, didn't it? Or you just accepted the faff.
Total faff. And the ultimate faff, the moment that struck fear into the heart of every tape owner. The mechanical disaster.
The tape getting eaten. Oh, God. The horror.
You'd hear that awful grinding sound, the music would stop, and you'd press eject.
Only to find loops of precious brown tape spewing out of the cassette shell, tangled around the pinch rollers and cap stands inside the player. Tape spaghetti.
Nightmare fuel. You'd have to gently, carefully, try and pull it out without snapping it, then sit there with a pencil or your little finger, painstakingly winding it back into the spool.
And praying it wasn't too badly creased or stretched to be unplayable ever again, leaving a tape on the dashboard in the sun. Guaranteed disaster.
Oh, yeah. And let's not forget the basic inconvenience of having to physically flip the tape over halfway through an album just as you were getting into it.
Constant interruption, high maintenance, required patience. Sounded kind of mediocre.
Yeah.
And yet, we absolutely loved them for the freedom they gave us. That flexibility was key.
It really was. But technology marches on, right? People wanted better sound quality, and the home audio world had already embraced digital. So, fast forward a bit. The compact disc is king. Crystal clear digital sound, no hiss, no wow, no flutter. It felt like the future. And inevitably, Sony and others thought, let's make this portable. Enter the Discman, or portable CD player, often confusingly also branded CD Walkman.
Right. And the big draw, the promise, was absolutely the sound quality. This was it. Uncompressed, 16-bit, 44.1 kilohertz digital audio, exactly what you got from your home CD player.
The difference was night and day compared to cassette, wasn't it? That first time hearing a CD on the go, it sounded so clean, so crisp.
Totally. All the analog artifacts were just gone. No background noise, perfect pitch stability. It was a massive leap in fidelity.
And by the mid-90s, CDs were the format. Everyone owned CDs, the music industry was built around them, so the media was everywhere.
Exactly. Unlike some later niche formats, you could buy the actual albums you wanted ready to play. And the CD itself felt more robust than a cassette, didn't it? Less prone to magnetic wear or heat damage. Although, scratches were a new enemy.
True, scratches were bad. But then came the next evolution, kind of the digital mixtape, CDR.
Ah, yes, the blank CDR. When those burners and the blank discs themselves became affordable, probably late 90s, early 2000s, that changed things again.
Suddenly we could burn our own custom mixes, rip tracks from our existing CDs, maybe download some early MP3s legally or otherwise, and create our own perfect 74-minute digital playlist.
It felt incredibly powerful. You could sequence tracks perfectly, no gaps unless you wanted them. It was a huge step up from real-time dubbing onto cassette. This custom digital playlist on a disc was a really important bridge.
Okay, so amazing sound quality, readily available music, and eventually the ability to make our own perfect digital mixtapes. What was the catch? Because there was a huge catch.
The catch was the portable part of portable CD player. It was Optimistic.
Optimistic is putting it mildly. They
Hmm.
called it a CD Walkman, but walking was risky, and jogging, forget it, pure fantasy.
Right. The players themselves were way bigger and heavier than a cassette Walkman. You couldn't comfortably fit one in most pockets. And the CDs themselves, while smaller than records, were still, 5 inches across. Carrying more than one or two meant bringing a case.
Those big zippered CD binders, everyone had one, stuffed with easily scratched discs, often needing a backpack just for your music.
Exactly. So the physical bulk was a major issue. But the real killer, the thing that defined the misery of the portable CD player experience, was the skipping
Oh God, the skipping. It was relentless. The slightest bump, the slightest jolt.
and silence. Or maybe a horrible digital stuttering sound. The laser mechanism trying to read that spinning disc was just incredibly sensitive to any kind of movement.
I vividly remember walking down the street, trying to hold the player perfectly level like I was carrying a bomb, just to avoid the skip. Stepping off a curb was terrifying.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Or stopping dead in your tracks, holding your breath, waiting for the music to maybe kick back in. It created this constant low-level anxiety while listening,
It totally undermined the whole point of portability. You couldn't really move reliably.
which inevitably led to the technological fix: anti-skip protection, or ESP electronic skip protection. You started seeing players advertising 10-second anti-skip, then 40-second anti-skip.
Right, like it was a badge of honor. But how did that actually work? It wasn't magic, was it?
No, definitely not magic. It was basically just RAM buffer memory.
Okay, explain.
So the player would spin the disc, read the music data ahead of where you were currently listening, and store maybe 10, 20, 40 seconds of that audio data in a memory chip.
Ah, like a little reservoir of music.
Exactly. So if the player got bumped and the laser lost its place on the disc for a few seconds, the player would keep playing the music smoothly from that memory buffer, while the laser frantically tried to find its spot again and refill the buffer. Makes sense.
It did make sense, and it definitely helped. But, and this is the crucial trade-off, it came at a massive cost.
Let me guess. Batteries.
Batteries. To keep that buffer filled, the player had to work harder, spin the disc more often or faster, and keep that memory chip powered up.
So goodbye, weeks of battery life from the cassette Walkman.
Oh yeah. Hello, maybe, if you were lucky, 6 to 10 hours from a set of WAs in a CD player, especially if the anti-skip was working hard. It absolutely hammered the batteries.
So you traded constant skipping for slightly less frequent skipping and terrible battery life. Great.
Pretty much. And if the bump or vibration lasted longer than the buffer, say you actually did try to jog, it would still skip anyway, just, 40 seconds later.
So frustrating. And you still had that fundamental capacity limit, right? About 74 minutes per disc.
Yep. Even with your custom CDRs, that was the max. So for any long journey, or if you just wanted variety, you were back to lugging around that bulky CD binder, swapping discs constantly.
So, the CD Walkman. Great sound quality, eventually good for custom mixes, but bulky, skip-prone unless you sacrificed battery life, and limited capacity per disc. Not exactly portable perfection.
Not even close.
Right.
Which sets the stage perfectly for the next contender, the one that tried to fix the CD's problems but created its own, the MiniDisc.
Okay, MiniDisc, MD. This one always felt a bit exotic, like something out of science fiction in the mid-90s. Sony really pushed it hard for a while.
Yeah, it was very much Sony's baby, though other manufacturers made players too. And you're right, Johnny, it felt futuristic because in many ways it was. It addressed a lot of the CD Walkman's flaws directly.
So what was the big idea? What made it different?
Well, first off, the physical format was brilliant. The disc itself was tiny, only about 2.5 inches across, and crucially, it lived inside a hard plastic cartridge, kind of like a smaller, thicker floppy disk.
Okay, so no exposed surface like a CD.
Exactly. That cartridge protected it brilliantly from scratches, dust, fingerprints, all the stuff that could ruin a CD. It was way more robust for chucking in a bag.
So durability like a cassette almost, but digital.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But because it was smaller than a CD, the players could be smaller too, more genuinely pocketable. Plus, it offered random access. Like a CD, you could jump straight to any track.
Okay, smaller, more durable, random access. Sounds good. What else?
The truly revolutionary part, the thing that blew people's minds back then, was the on-the-fly editing.
Editing. On the player itself.
Yeah. Because the music was stored digitally, using a magneto-optical system, you could do nonlinear editing right there on the device.
Yeah.
You could divide tracks, combine tracks, erase tracks completely, change the track order.
Whoa, really? So you could, like, cut the boring intro off a song?
You absolutely could. Or merge two short tracks into one, and you could title the tracks and the disc itself using the player's buttons and screen. This was stuff you just couldn't do with cassettes or CDs. It felt incredibly advanced for portable audio.
That does sound pretty cool. So smaller, tougher, editable. What about the sound quality? Was it CD quality?
Well, that's where it gets a little complicated. No, it wasn't uncompressed CD quality. It used a type of data compression developed by Sony called ATRAC Adaptive Transform Acoustic Coding.
Compression, like MP3, so it wasn't as good as
It
CD.
was lossy compression, yes, meaning some data was discarded to make the file smaller. But, and this is important, ATRAC was specifically designed for audio quality. And the general consensus, especially comparing it to the very early low bitrate MP3s that were starting to appear.
Like 96K or 128K MP3s.
Exactly. Compared to those, most people felt ATRAC sounded significantly better, closer to CD quality, even if not identical. Let's call it near CD quality. Plus, a huge advantage. Most MiniDisc players weren't just players, they were recorders too.
Oh, right. You could record onto them easily.
Yeah, usually with digital optical inputs, analog line-in, sometimes even microphone inputs. So musicians loved them for capturing ideas. People used them for high-quality voice recording. It was very versatile.
Okay, Jess, you're selling me on this. Smaller, tougher, editable, decent sound recording capability.
Mhm.
Why wasn't MiniDisc a massive global smash hit? Why did it end up being kind of niche?
Yeah, despite all those advantages, it had some pretty fatal flaws that held it back. Number one, market adoption or lack thereof.
Because it was mostly Sony.
Pretty much. While other companies licensed it, Sony controlled it tightly. That meant the selection of pre-recorded albums released on MiniDisc was always pretty limited compared to CDs. It never got that universal industry backing.
So if you bought a MiniDisc player, you were kind of expected to record your own stuff.
Largely, yes. Which leads to fatal flaw number two, getting music onto the damn thing, especially early on.
How did that work? Was it easy?
Easy, no. Early MiniDisc recording was almost painfully slow. Most common method, real-time analog recording.
Real time. You mean you had to play the CD or tape while the MiniDisc recorded it for the entire length of the album?
Yep. Connect your home stereo to the MiniDisc player with cables, press record on the MD, press play on the CD player, and then wait for 45 minutes or 60 minutes per album.
Oh my God. That's excruciating, like dubbing a cassette, but digital.
Exactly like dubbing a cassette. There was no simple file transfer, no dragging and dropping folders of MP3s. That came much later with NetMD, which allowed faster transfers via USB. But by then,
The MP3 train had already left the station, right?
pretty much, that initial recording hurdle was massive. And then there was the final nail in the coffin. Costs.
Always the way. Were they expensive?
Consistently more expensive than portable CD players, yeah. Both the players themselves and the blank mini-discs. Blank CDRs quickly became super cheap, but blank MDs always carried a bit of a premium.
So let me get this straight. You paid more money for a player in the media, you had fewer albums to buy, and recording your own music took ages.
You got it. Consumers looked at that equation, higher cost, proprietary format, difficult content loading, and most just stuck with the familiar, universal, cheaper CD, even with its skipping flaws. MiniDisc was technically brilliant in many ways, but convenience and cost ultimately killed it for the mass market. A real shame in a way.
Yeah, sounds like it. Okay, so CD was flawed, MD was cool but niche and inconvenient. What was next? Things were about to get really weird, weren't they? Enter the actual digital files.
Right, so now we're entering what you called the Wild West, Jess. Late 90s, maybe 1998 onwards, the MP3 file format is exploding online thanks to things like Napster.
Legally dubious file sharing, yes, but also just the idea that music could be pure data, easily shareable.
And companies started thinking, hey, maybe we don't need a disc at all. Maybe we can just put these MP3 files directly onto a little chip.
Exactly. This is the era of the pioneering pre-iPod MP3 players. Think Diamond Rio, the early creative Nomad players. These little solid-state devices.
Solid state. That's the key phrase, isn't it? Because that meant no moving parts, no spinning disks, no lasers trying to track grooves, just flash memory chips.
Which immediately solved the single biggest problem of the portable CD player.
Skipping. Gone. Vanished. Poof. These things were genuinely, truly skip-proof. You could jump, jog, shake them, drop them, probably, and the music just kept playing.
Finally, portable music that was actually portable for active people, that felt like a revolution in itself.
It really was. For anyone frustrated by CD skipping, this was the dream. And the other massive advantage, size.
Oh, yeah, they were tiny, weren't they? Some looked like slightly oversized USB sticks, others like chunky cigarette lighters.
Totally. Like the Creative Nomad Movo, you could just plug it straight into a USB port. They were incredibly small and lightweight compared to a Discman. You could clip them to your shirt. No need for a bag anymore.
And no need to carry media. Once the songs were on the device, that was it. No binders full of CDs or mini discs.
Exactly. Just the player itself. So skip-proof, super small, no physical media to carry. Sounds perfect, right?
Uh-oh. I sense a butt coming. A very large butt.
A massive, crippling butt, or rather, several of them. These early players were basically proof-of-concept devices suffering from the extreme limitations of technology at the time.
Okay, limitation number one, and it was a doozy. Storage capacity versus cost.
Astronomical costs for minuscule capacity. Flash memory back then was incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
So you'd pay, what, maybe $200, $300, sometimes more?
For a player that held 32 megabytes. Or maybe if you splashed out, 64 megabytes.
Exactly. 64 megabytes, that sounds like nothing. Now it's less than one photo on my phone. Back then, how many songs was that?
Well, it depends how much you compress them, right? But even at a kind of mediocre 128 kilobps MP3 quality, 64 MBs maybe, 15 songs, roughly an hour of music.
15 songs for
Yeah.
hundreds of dollars. Think about that cost per song. It was outrageous.
You had to be incredibly selective about what made the cut. I remember agonizing over which 10 or 12 tracks were worthy of being on my expensive little player for the week.
It was bizarre, especially when a cheap blank CDR could hold 74 minutes and a mini disc maybe 80 minutes for just a few bucks. The cost-capacity ratio was just broken.
And that tiny capacity led directly to another problem, didn't it? Sound quality often took a nosedive.
Yeah, because everyone was desperate to cram as many songs as possible onto that tiny, expensive memory chip. So what do? They compress the hell out of their MP3s.
Right. Instead of ripping at 192K or higher, people were using 128K, 96K, sometimes even lower byte rates grabbed from questionable online sources.
Exactly. And those low byte rates sound audibly worse. Tinny highs, swirly artifacts, no bass, often significantly worse quality than a standard CD, or even sometimes a well-recorded cassette. You sacrifice quality for quantity.
Okay, so ridiculously expensive for tiny capacity, leading to potentially poor sound quality. What else made the Wild West so wild?
The user experience, getting those 15 songs onto the player in the first place. Oh, the pain.
Yes. The dreaded software.
It was universally terrible. These players didn't just mount as a drive like a USB stick does now. Oh no, you had to install clunky proprietary software that came on a CD-ROM with the player.
Usually made by some third-party company you'd never heard of.
Exactly. And this software was often buggy, unstable, had a terrible interface, and might just randomly refuse to recognize the player was even plugged in.
I remember wrestling with drivers, USB port conflicts.
Yeah.
It's not plug and play.
Not even close.
Yeah.
And the interfaces on the players themselves, awful. Tiny little monochrome LCD screens, maybe showing one line of text, confusing buttons that did multiple things, trying to navigate folders or find a song was just guesswork half the time.
So, loading your precious 15 songs wasn't just drag and drop, it was this whole ritual.
It was. Connect the player, pray the software launched and saw it, navigate the terrible software interface to find your MP3 files, select them, hit transfer, and then wait, sometimes in minutes, just to copy a few dozen megabytes over slow USB 1.1 ports.
USB 1.1, painfully slow.
It turned what should have been simple into this potential hours-long ordeal of frustration, troubleshooting, maybe rebooting the computer. It was genuinely painful.
So the dream of solid-state file-based music was there, skip-proof, tiny, but the reality, cripplingly low capacity for the cost, often poor sound quality, and an absolutely dreadful user experience on both the software and hardware side.
Exactly. It was a niche product for tech enthusiasts and early adopters who were willing to suffer for the skip-proof benefits. The mainstream looked at it and said, no thanks, I'll stick with my skipping Discman for now. The technology was almost there, but the ease of use, miles away.
Which brings us, finally, to the device that changed everything. The one that took that potential and actually delivered on the promise. October 2001. Apple, who hadn't really been in the music player game before, steps in. They don't know it's the iPod. And it wasn't just another MP3 player, it felt like something entirely different.
It really did, Johnny. Apple was late to the party, but they clearly looked at the mess of the existing market. The Rios, the Nomads identified all the pain points and just solved them, all at once.
It wasn't really about inventing a new format, was it? It was about refining the experience of digital music.
Precisely. They took the core idea, file-based music, but made it work seamlessly, appealingly.
Hmm?
And the first, most dramatic way they did that was by obliterating the capacity issue.
Oh, yeah. While everyone else was struggling with 32 or 64 megabytes of expensive flash memory.
Apple put a tiny 1.8-inch hard disk drive inside the first iPod, a spinning hard drive, which gave it 5 gigabytes of storage.
5 gigabytes. In 2001, that sounded like science fiction. How many songs was that?
That was the magic number, the famous slogan, 1,000 songs in your pocket.
1,000 songs. Compared to 15, it wasn't just an improvement, it was a different category entirely.
It completely changed the game.
Yeah.
Suddenly, you weren't agonizing over which 12 songs to load. You could realistically carry a huge chunk, maybe even all, of your music library with you. That
Right.
promise alone was enough to make people sit up and take notice.
So massive capacity jump thanks to the mini hard drive. What was the next big innovation?
The design and the interface. Apple threw out those clunky buttons and tiny screens.
The scroll wheel.
The mechanical scroll wheel on that first generation, yeah. It was genius. Suddenly, navigating hundreds, potentially thousands of songs wasn't a chore. It was actually fun, intuitive. You could just spin the wheel and fly through your artists or albums.
It made browsing a huge library feel effortless, which was crucial now that you had a huge library on there.
Exactly. Coupled with the clean, clear screen and Apple's logical menu system, it just blew the user experience of every other MP3 player out of the water. It looked good, and it felt good to use.
Okay, so huge capacity, brilliant interface. But what about getting those 1,000 songs onto the iPod? Did it solve the software nightmare?
Oh, absolutely. This was perhaps the masterstroke, the seamless integration with iTunes.
Right. iTunes had been around for a bit as a music management program on the Mac.
And Apple made it the perfect unified hub for the iPod. No more buggy third-party software. iTunes let you easily rip your CDs, organize your library, make playlists, and crucially, sync it all to your iPod incredibly quickly and reliably.
And that speed was key, wasn't it? Especially with 5 GB of data. They didn't use USB 1.1.
No, critically, the first iPod used FireWire, which was way, way faster than the USB 1.1 standard most PCs had back then.
How much faster are we talking?
Like potentially 20 or 30 times faster. Transferring a gigabyte of music might take half an hour over USB 1.1, but only a couple of minutes over FireWire.
Wow. So filling up that huge 5 GB drive didn't actually take forever.
Exactly. That FireWire connection was essential to making the 1,000 songs promise practical. It made the whole sync process feel genuinely seamless and fast, removing that final massive pain point for the early MP3 players.
Capacity, interface, software, speed. Apple nailed all the technical aspects. And then there was the look.
The look, that clean, white, minimalist design, and those iconic white earbuds. It instantly became a status symbol.
You saw someone with white headphones, you knew they had an iPod. It wasn't just a gadget, it was a fashion statement.
It really pushed digital music into the mainstream culture in a way nothing else had.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted one, partly because it worked so well, partly because it just looked so cool.
Okay, so it sounds like perfection. But even the iPod revolution wasn't flawless, especially right at the beginning, was it? There were still some hurdles.
Oh, definitely. Let's not forget the initial friction points. Firstly, the price.
Yeah. How much was that first 5 GB model?
$399 US.
Mhm.
In 2001 money, that was expensive. It was absolutely a luxury item at first, not something everyone could afford.
Definitely put it out of reach for a lot of people initially. And the other big limitation.
Compatibility. That first generation iPod, it was Mac only.
Ouch. So the vast majority of computer users who were on Windows couldn't use it.
Nope. Not until Apple released a Windows-compatible version and iTunes for Windows about a year later. That seriously limited its initial market reach. Using FireWire also limited it initially, as fewer PCs had FireWire ports compared to USB.
Right. So expensive and Mac only at launch. What about the hardware itself? Using a hard drive solved capacity, but didn't it bring back a problem the solid-state players had fixed?
Fragility, yeah. And skipping, potentially. That tiny hard drive, while amazing for capacity, still had moving parts. It was sensitive to shocks.
So you couldn't just toss it around like a Diamond Rio.
Definitely not. If you dropped it, you risked serious mechanical damage to the drive. And even hard bumps while playing could potentially cause skips, though Apple did include an anti-skip buffer, learning from the CD player era. But it wasn't as invulnerable as a pure flash memory player.
A trade-off. Massive capacity for a bit more physical vulnerability. And the other hidden issue with that first gen, the one that caused controversy later.
The battery. Just like modern smartphones, it was sealed inside, not user replaceable.
So when the battery inevitably started to degrade after a year or two.
You couldn't just pop in new derrieres. Your expensive iPod's battery life would dwindle, and getting it replaced officially was difficult and costly, often pushing people towards just buying a new iPod.
That caused quite a backlash eventually, didn't it?
It did. It led to lawsuits and forced Apple to introduce better, though still not cheap, battery replacement programs.
Yeah.
But for early adopters, that non-replaceable battery was a ticking time bomb.
So even the revolutionary iPod had its early stumbles: high cost, Mac-only launch, hard drive fragility, and that sealed battery. But still, its core achievement was undeniable.
Absolutely. It solved the fundamental problems of capacity and usability that had plagued every other portable music player before it. It set the template for the next decade of digital music. Hashtag tag outro. Wow. What a journey, eh, Johnny? From the hissy but trusty Cassette Walkman
Battling tangled tape with a pencil,
to the bulky, skipping CD players promising digital purity,
holding them perfectly still like a surgeon,
then the clever, complex, but ultimately doomed MiniDisc,
spending hours recording in real time,
suffering through those first tiny, expensive, painful-to-use MP3 players,
agonizing over which 15 songs to load.
and finally arriving at the iPod, which just put it all together: capacity, design, software, boom.
It really is a fantastic story of technological evolution and human tolerance for terrible user experiences just to get music on the move. It's a study in those trade-offs, isn't it? We sacrificed sound quality for portability with cassettes, then battery life and reliability for sound quality with CDs.
Yeah, and the early MP3 players sacrificed cost and capacity for skip-proof playback. What the iPod proved, I think, is that once the core technology is mature enough, what people really crave is massive capacity combined with an utterly seamless, intuitive experience. Get that right, and they'll pay a premium?
That combination, the 1,000 songs and the iTunes integration, that's what changed everything. It made digital music management easy for the masses.
Totally. It's amazing how quickly we forgot the pain of all those earlier formats once the iPod arrived. Okay, Johnny, final challenge time, as promised.
Ooh, okay, hit me.
Out of all those devices we talked about, Cassette Walkman, portable CD player, MiniDisc player, one of those early 64, maybe MP3 players, or the very first 2001 iPod, if you had to pick one to use again today, for a week, knowing all its flaws, which one would it be?
Oh, wow. Okay. Definitely not the early MP3 player. The capacity and software would drive me insane within an hour. The CD player. Skipping is just too annoying. Cassette. Tempting for nostalgia, but the sequential access.
So it's between MiniDisc and iPod Gen 1.
I think I'd go MiniDisc, yeah. The little cartridges were cool, the editing was genuinely futuristic for its time, and ATRAC probably holds up okay. It feels like the most interesting road not taken. What about you, Jess?
It's tough. The iPod is objectively the best in terms of function, but I think I have to go with the Cassette Walkman.
Really? Back to the hiss and the winding?
Yeah. There's just something about the physicality of it. Making a mixtape, the clump of the buttons, that indestructible battery life. I think I could embrace the analog limitations again for a week. Plus, finding my old tapes would be an adventure.
I respect that. A true analog holdout.
Well, that just about wraps up our first deep dive into the tech graveyards of yesteryear.
It was a lot of fun reminiscing about all that clunky but loved gear. It absolutely was. So a huge thank you to all of you for tuning in to this nostalgia rewind here on Where's the Start Button?
We hope you enjoyed the trip down memory lane. We'll be back soon with another exploration of forgotten tech. Catch you next time.
Bye, everyone.